Hello again, I'm Dan Morfitt and this is your Daily Rundown on Channel 7. Now if you want to get in touch with the show, we're at The Daily Rundown on Twitter, or you can email dailyrundown@thattv.com and you could have your something to say. Which brings me on to Madie. It's your chance to have your midweek something to say, Madie.
Thank you. I would like to encourage people to sort of think differently about what they accept in terms of certain people in society and the way that hierarchies work, because often you will encounter a basic lack of understanding of how hierarchies work. This is because we're not necessarily taught that. It's not a school subject. So for instance, recently there's been an explosion of hate crime towards minority groups, or people who aren't the dominant group, and that's a lot due to misinformation. And in general, with the Black Lives Matter movement, you encounter a lot of people saying, oh, am I the only one thinking all lives matter? But the point is that the hierarchy exists where white people are the dominant, historically and currently more powerful race. Therefore, you have to focus on the races of people who are being unfairly discriminated against. That's why you can say Black Lives Matter and you're putting the focus on that. It's not taking anything away from anybody else. And I just feel like those kind of things aren't always thought about by people. So it exists in that way. And then again with sexuality and homophobia and the fact that, people see straight people as normal when that's ridiculous, we're all different. And with women and how it's men who hold the positions of power, therefore women are the more oppressed. And this might seem redundant, but if you encounter this all the time and nobody ever says anything, nothing is going to change. So I think it's all the more important to just have an opinion, to not be so quiet and try and be popular. It might be popular to not have an opinion, but then everyone will like you apart from yourself because you're not having integrity. So when you encounter these things, like the other day, somebody felt empowered by the Brexit vote to say something absolutely homophobic, but also purely hateful, inciting violence, basically. And their argument was that they had a right to say what they want and they were entitled to their opinion, but you are not entitled to hate speech. And that's something that...
People often do get freedom of speech caught up with there is no freedom to offend.
There isn't. And also, you don't have freedom from consequences.
Yes.
So what you say and what you do has a consequence. That's something you need to be reminded about. And I think in everyday lives, especially as somebody who cares a lot about gender, because I think it's often the most misunderstood in terms of the feminist movement, that it really is for everybody. And that the reason that you might think women complain the most is because they're experiencing the most oppression because of how hierarchies work. So again, if you're talking about women's issues, it's not taking anything away from men, because men are in those situations holding the privilege.
Do you think these hate crimes and these incidences of racism, homophobia, misogyny have been on the increase because we've seen the upper echelons of our politicians, not just over here but also in America, hold those views?
Precisely.
It almost validates other people's views that they might not have held before, but because they've now been given the ability to have them, the carte blanche to have them, they'll take them and take them to an extreme, often dangerous place.
Yeah, of course, and it permeates throughout society. So you look to those who govern and you look to those in the spotlight, so including the media, to get the cultural buzz. And the kind of language that we use is incredibly impactful. So, for instance, with Owen Smith, when we were talking about him earlier, and he often uses really sexist language, but then still says, oh, I'm a liberal and I support women's rights. But it's really not enough to just say, I'm a man and a feminist.
He did come out and say, I am normal, I have a wife and kids.
Right, and clearly he's not thought about or committed to thinking about understanding how hierarchies work, because it's not hard to understand, and so what that means is that there's willful ignorance. And that's not really excusable.
The worst thing is, because we are seeing incidents of it every single day that are being in the news. For example, Leslie Jones from the film Ghostbusters was hit with racist and sexist remarks on her Twitter, so much so that she left the platform. Because it's happening every day, does it lessen the impact of it, do you think?
No, I think it's just a more permanent reminder.
I would say with it being so, basically right now the people who are sort of permeating this culture of hatred are doing it because they feel like they're going to be losing out on something if these other people, basically they're so used to getting things their own way that they're suddenly feeling like we're not, look, feminism isn't taking anything away from men. These men feel like it is, because they're suddenly not going to be able to have like all this power and all this this control over this other gender, and that's what they're scared of. They're suddenly going to lose this.
It's almost as if this hate has become popularised
It
and become a bandwagon to jump on, and some people are taking that too far. Madie, thank you for your something to say tonight. It was really interesting. Cal, no, do you want to get something off your
Have I got to
chest?
follow that? I was going to talk about the BFG. That's
The
not
big friendly giant.
You guys have just been talking about like issues that people have around the world, and I'm talking about, I went to see the BFG 2 days ago.
But the BFG is important, even though his name is a tautology.
It's balls. The film is what I'm going to try and get across right now. It's balls. It's
balls.
It's a load of balls.
Really?
So I'll sort of start by saying that I didn't
That's
grow
your
up.
opinion.
I know it's my something to say. I didn't grow up with the BFG, so I didn't know anything about the story itself, and so I'm coming into this film without knowing much. There might be some spoilers right here, but it's a 33-year-old book, so whatever. But it's the first half of it was absolute Spielberg magic. Like, it was incredible. It was amazing. It was beautiful. It was just brilliant. And then they get to the second half where they go to see the Queen because they need the Queen to save the Giants' land because there are these giants that are being mean and like bullying people. They're like, I know, the Queen will help. So they go and get the Queen, and she helps them. She sends in her army, the amazing British army.
I don't remember this.
All right, this happens. And then the army takes the giants away and puts them on another island. There's no trial or anything held. It's just, the Queen is great, so we've done this, and it's Britain's amazing. And then Sophie, who comes from an orphanage, gets to live with the Queen, doesn't go back and help the orphanage that she came from. It's basically, so that's like some weird methodology, weird like mixed like messaging and stuff, but that's not what I'm trying to get at. I just had to get it off my chest. It annoyed me. What I'm trying to get at is that the kids in the screening were bored of the film, and I think that's because of the way that it's portrayed. It's very much done as like this Spielberg-esque film, like E.T., like these other films that he's done, and I'm not sure that's what kids want anymore. And I'm wondering what it is that actually grabs them. I'm a huge fan of shows like Adventure Time and Steven Universe, which are the cartoons on Cartoon Network. They're absolutely brilliant. They're shows aimed at kids, but deal with very real things. Like Adventure Time very specifically deals a lot with the idea of death and also what the idea of growing up and everything means, and it deals with all these deep subject matters. And what I'm trying to think of is what in Britain, so these are American shows, Adventure Time and Steven Universe are American, BFG is very quintessentially British. What in Britain is reaching out to kids these days that are not getting across the pond? There's a big fear about us, Britain, basically becoming Americanized at the moment.
Got Peppa Pig.
We've got Peppa Pig, exactly, but what I've seen
We've
a bit
got
of
Fireman Sam kicking over a page of the Quran, which is one of the most bizarre news stories of today.
That's exactly what I find with British TV programs aimed at kids is that it talks down to them and patronises them. With cartoons coming from America, it's made by people who are essentially talking one on their level, but also but also giving them adult conversation topics and actual real things to think about within the guise of these characters. And I'm just not sure what Britain's doing that. And basically British TV programs seem to just try and uphold British values.
So do you think...
And I'm wondering what we could do about that.
Do you think Spielberg's failed then with his BFG because he's tried to be too British?
I think so. I was watching it, and the whole second half, kids were bored. They weren't interested in what was going on. There was a bit which was aimed solely at kids where everyone in the Buckingham Palace farts a lot. Which actually, once again, talking down to kids like, oh, you like farting?
It sounds like an episode of Little Britain gone wrong.
Exactly, but I'm wondering, and what I'm trying to get at is, what are we giving to kids that is good from us, other than just like, oh, look at these British values. Because Fireman Sam, again, kids over here might like it, sure, but it is balls. It is a load of rubbish.
Okay, yeah, rubbish is a better word.
Yeah, it's better, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Sorry about that. And that's the issue that I have, and that's my rant for today.
You just don't think we're coming up with something as good as Steven Universe or Adventure Time.
Exactly. Yeah, and I'm wondering
seems to capture the imagination more than, oh look, there's a fireman, or there's a postman.
Yeah.
Or there's a pig.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty much it. So you've got these fantastical shows that work on so many levels, but over here we're not really
there's a
creating
builder
that.
called Robert.
And I think kids are bored of stuff that we've got going on here, and that's what I'm ranting about.
But and your small time review of BFG is rubbish.
Rubbish. That's the word I used. Yep.
Rubbish.
Yep.
Rubbish is
rubbish.
the word you use.
Rubbish.
No schnozberries in there.
There were some of that stuff going on. Yeah, weird words that Roald Dahl used, you know.
Because I love Roald Dahl books, and I think all kids could and should read them, and then read his later things, and read Boy, and read about his life, because Roald Dahl's life is just as mesmerising and interesting as some of his work. So thank you for your rant tonight.
Sorry, I got ranty then. Britain should be making more good things, is what I'm trying to say.
You need to spearhead the animation studio.
I might write them a letter.
Right, that's a very, very impassioned something to say from both of our guests tonight. Right, see you in about 3 minutes' time for some more of the strange stories of the day. This is the Daily Rundown on Channel 7.